Right. Hello, everyone. 1 second, I think we seem to have lost John. We're just trying to get him back on. Just give us a minute or so until we're just having a little technical problem here.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to start again, guys. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Vitality Academy's presentation by Dr. Adriel Ramnarine on the immunity update. This is a very timely presentation. And before we jump into it, I want to take a moment to introduce the Vitality Academy to you. I want to welcome those returning and as well those of you who are new to the Vitality Academy. So the Vitality Academy is a partnership between the team of doctors at the Ashtara Center located in Chaguanas, Trinidad, and myself, and I'm a life, business, and health coach. And what we did is we created the opportunity to share ideas of what we're very passionate about, helping people in their lives and their health and achieving greater vitality. So with that, let me tell you a couple technical things and then I'll introduce Dr. Adriel. So if you're on a computer and you're having any issues with audio or video, it's typically one of two things. It's usually a browser issue, and simply put, try to be on Google Chrome. That would be the best bet. And then secondly, make sure your internet is not shared with others if someone's streaming in the house or whatever. So if it comes out, I will be here in the background. I will be here to support any way I can by tech support in the background, and you'll see me in the chat. And then, but the easiest answer is typically just refresh your browser. And that'll be commonly the first thing I'll suggest. Okay, so with that, I want to take a moment to introduce Dr. Adriel Ramnarine. So he attended St. George's University in Grenada, became an MD there. He worked as a primary care and emergency medicine. He did that for 4 years. And then at the same time, when he was actually in university, he was a tutor. He tutored students. And then for the past 5 years, and we were just realized actually today that he's been there for 5 years, so you can congratulate him in the chat. So he is now 5 years working alongside his family, his father, etc., at the Ashtara Center. So with that, Dr. Adriel, I'm going to disappear and thank you and welcome. It's great to see you.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Yes, this talk is I'm seeing some comments, people saying that we need this the most at this point in time. And yeah, we figured at the start that we did need to do a sort of immune update just to get some more information out there and to make sure things that we've said before, we can compile it together and get everybody on the same page as to in terms of, how we get through this, how we do well, how not just get through it, but how we do well through this pandemic and get through this unscathed and we flourish and prosper. So let me just get my slides up here. Right. So we'll be using a few slides just as a guide to keep us on track and so we can continue with the talk and don't stray too much off topic, because this topic is so broad that it's really difficult to sort of just stick to the lines. All right. So it's just a sort of an immune update. or immune system update as to how we can keep ourselves healthy and well and safe during this pandemic. And just a few things I wanted to mention as well alongside it in terms of what I've been seeing and experiencing as we continue to see patients. We're considered essential services here in Trinidad and Tobago. We're a GP medical practice. So we are still seeing patients and helping patients with their health issues as this whole thing goes on. At this point in time, we're currently in a state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. And this has escalated to the point where we have a high level of spread of this virus going through the population and continuing to burn through the population. We seem to be experiencing a little bit of a shift in terms of how this virus has been working as previously. And there has been some suspicions by the health authorities here that we now have this Brazilian strain here in Trinidad and Tobago. And so far, the limited data we have on the Brazilian strain seems to be increased spread. And that's why, and also there's a shift as well in the demographics as to the severe illness and mortality of this disease. And we will talk a little bit about that. So let's begin. At this time, a lot of us, we're putting on brave faces, but this is what we feel like, and this is what our inner selves are looking like at this point in time. There is a lot of emotions, going around. There's a lot of anxiety, fear, anger, and frustration. There's a lot of these negative emotions that are sort of permeating the atmosphere and spreading around, and even people who are not afraid before are now getting really worried and concerned about the situation that's been going on. So in order to discuss, we just want to give a little bit of a background first as to how the immune system in the body functions, and how it works and how it protects us from viruses, from bacteria, from generally from infections, but we'll try to narrow it down on focusing. And just to give just a briefing, the immune system is a very complex topic. And it takes a long time to get into, so we'll just have a quick brief overview of the immune system, just so that we can understand or have an idea as to how we protect ourselves. At this point in time, there doesn't really seem to be any treatments directed at the coronavirus, and that is mainly because viruses are very difficult to target and specifically treat. Since these are not really metabolically active, we can call them organisms, but that's up for debate. Viruses don't carry out any processes that a regular cell would. They're very simple structures, and there's always been the question of are they alive or not. They tend to simply be proteins and lipids that are surrounding some DNA or RNA, and in this case, this virus seems to be an RNA virus. So they're very simple life forms, if we can call them that, and there's always been a debate on that. And we'll direct this as to how your immune system sort of handles that. So we'll just chat a little bit about the immune system, and the key here as well is to take away from this is that we do have an immune system. It is there to protect us, and we need to treat it well in order so that it can do its job to protect us. We've had our immune system since the beginning of time. It's been there protecting us. It's protected us from all sorts of different organisms, outbreaks. And again, once your immune system is in a healthy state, that is what gives you the best chance of doing well and surviving and thriving during a pandemic. So to simply, seems we have a little bit of a problem with this slide here. Don't know what would have happened there. But anyway, on the column there, you see innate and adaptive. It seems there's a little bit of a problem when I was translating the slides over. Innate immune system and the adaptive immune system is what we'll just have a brief rundown of. The innate immune system is more or less the aspect of the immune system that protects you within minutes to hours of being exposed to, let's say, a virus like the coronavirus or COVID-19. It's very non-specific. It is what will initiate sort of when this virus first contacts your cells and starts sort of replicating or tries to get into a cell. This is what the aspect of the immune system that's going to start working to defend you or protect you or to keep you healthy. Like I said, it works within minutes to hours. It's almost instant from the time a virus enters the body and tries to latch onto our cells. It's very broad spectrum, meaning that it doesn't target specific organisms. it tends to work in a manner that targets a wide range of organisms. And we have this immunity from birth, and it doesn't require you to have antibodies, or not necessarily antibodies, but not necessarily having seen the organism before. So this immune system is what babies depend on, in addition to their mother's breast milk, to protect them from infections and to keep them healthy. It doesn't really have memory, like I said, so it isn't going to remember organisms and adapt or change or get better in terms of handling organisms as it's seen before. And the cells that tend to be sort of connected to this part of the immune system would be sort of phagocytes. Phagocytes are these types of white blood cells within your body that try to gobble up pathogens and get rid of them before they can set in and cause infection and start creating trouble within the body. You have cells like natural killer cells, which will hunt down virally infected cells or cells that present information saying, hey, I'm infected with a virus. You have dendritic cells, which will gather these proteins and these compounds that these viruses produce and present it to other aspects of the immune system that would be considered adaptive. And you have all these compounds like complement and cytokines that these are chemical compounds that prepare the body and help you to sort of fight off infection or even prevent infection from establishing. So when you're in a healthy state, your innate immune system is going to be there to protect you. It's going to be there to prevent infection in the first place. It's going to try to limit organisms once they try to get into the body. So we do have defenses against these organisms or against these viruses that attempt to sort of get into our bodies, try to replicate and try to wreak havoc. The adaptive immune system, on the other hand, and again, I apologize for this slide. I don't know what happened here. The adaptive immune system is more or less what we're trying to stimulate with the current crop of vaccines that we have, or in general, all vaccines. The adaptive immune system takes a few days and sometimes weeks in order to get up to speed where it can actually work on fighting off an infection. And it's very specific, and in terms of it tries to identify specific organisms, and you will activate the white blood cells that are necessary to fight off that specific infection. So right now, the vaccines that are being used, they're targeting one type of protein, and this is a protein from the coronavirus called the spike protein. And this spike protein is what enables the coronavirus to interact with our cells and as well enter our cells, where it can then start replicating itself, destroy that cell, and then release more of itself, copies of itself into the body, where it will subsequently infect more cells and copy itself again and continue that cycle over and over and over again. So these vaccines that are designed to expose the body to the spike protein is what will be what is currently being used to sort of get the immune system up and running. Natural immunity or getting exposed to the virus and having an infection will also present these similar spike proteins to the immune system, which will then get your adaptive immune system ready to go. And this is why we have this issue where they measure antibodies. So this is why when you have an initial infection or you've been vaccinated, your body can retain some level of memory because the adaptive immune system remembers what it's been exposed to before. There have been some concern, and I've heard issues in the media and as well medical personnel speaking about, they talk about waning or waxing levels of antibodies. So when you're initially exposed and you're infected, later on, they find that your levels of antibodies actually go down and reduce and drop. And that's where there was a concern initially that, hey, we can be exposed to this virus, develop an adaptive immunity, fight it off, and then later on, go back to square one where our immune system is sort of forgotten or doesn't know how to deal with this virus anymore. There still are some concerns of that, and especially with how this virus changes as well. What has been found is that RNA viruses tend to be, which is what one of the coronavirus belongs to the family of RNA viruses. They tend to sort of mutate very quickly because of the instability of RNA. DNA viruses are much more stable and they tend to mutate, far less often. But RNA viruses mutate very easily. influenza virus is also another RNA virus, and that's why every year there's new strains of the flu that come out and cause infections and has an effect on mortality and morbidity in the population. So these, adaptive immune system is what is going to sort of try to remember what is going on here. The one thing is that I haven't found any studies on is in terms of your immune system, the antibodies that it produces starts to drop off after a while. But I haven't actually seen any real studies yet done on if there is B cell memory. B cells are the cells that typically produce antibodies. And when these B cells, after infection, they tend to reduce down to a small amount of them, which we call memory B cells. And they will hang out in lymph and also surveil around the body. And if they see the virus appear again, they will then reactivate and start producing antibodies again. So I haven't seen any real studies yet checking to see if we still maintain a certain level of B cells after infection so that our body will remember and be able to produce. But the expectation is that this does occur. So that's the difference between innate and adaptive immune systems. And we have these systems within ourselves that protect us, that keep us safe. And this is the reason as well why, even though we have, this virus is making its way through the population, it is causing a lot of damage in terms of mortality, morbidity. People are getting affected. The vast majority of people that do get affected by this virus are able to fight it off, and they are able to recover. There have been some concerns of long-term damage to the lungs in terms of finding changes in the lungs, sometimes even months after COVID infection. But again, we need more data to be able to look into how that is affecting people in terms of long-term. I remember in medical school, one of my professors who he showed me some x-rays of some patients, and when I looked at the x-rays, the lungs of this patient looked really terrible. It looked as if this patient, had a really bad chest infection going on. I looked at the chest X-ray and looked at the consultant and said, "This person is in a lot of trouble." And he laughed at me and he said, "Well, let's go look at the patient." And he took me to see the patient, and the patient was resting comfortably on the bed and looking all right and breathing comfortably off oxygen. So I looked at him and looked at the X-ray and looked at the patient, and he pulled me aside and he said, always remember to look at your patient as well. Don't just look at your examinations and your tests. And what he pointed out is that most people with a lung infection will have long-term changes to the lungs. And in most cases, they tend to recover, or the lungs slowly starts to pull itself back. And if you look at a chest X-ray, of a patient, let's say about 2 to 3 weeks, who's recovered from a severe pneumonia, you will notice that, or even just as any pneumonia, you'll notice that there still are some changes in the lungs. And it does take the lungs some time. Whether in terms of this COVID-19 virus, whether that extends long-term, we're not too sure yet. And they're still doing studies and data to find that out. So in terms of the immune system, we have to ask ourselves, during this pandemic, what are we doing to ourselves and how are we affecting our immune system in both negative and positive ways? So we really have to stop and ask ourselves, are we doing right by our immune systems? Because that is what is going to be there to protect us from infection, from severe infection, and as well is going to save our lives in terms of protecting us from this virus. And a few things that I've noticed that is occurring nowadays is that we a lot of the things are out there, a lot of the emotions, what's going on, what we're doing to ourselves, it's not really in line with keeping a healthy immune system and making sure that we're ready and we're able to deal with this virus in the event that we do become infected. I mean, the first one I wanted to talk about is fear. And it's palpable. It's in the air. You feel it. You everywhere you go, the people you speak to, everyone is afraid. Everyone is stressed. Everyone is panicked. Everyone has a high level of anxiety. The patients that we see here in the practice here, we do try to work with them with this issue as well and try to counsel them. But fear is really one of the main driving forces here with this virus. And it's paralyzing people emotionally, mentally. It's really shutting them down. And there are tons of studies, that show how fear affects your immune system function. And by allowing yourself And I know this is not an easy thing to push back against, because it's there in the media, it's there with the people you talk to, it's all around. You're hearing statistics that people are dying and people are getting seriously ill. But what I'm trying to say here is that we have to be able, and we have to learn to deal with this fear and this aspect. Otherwise, we are doing severe damage to our own immune systems and our body's ability to resist and to fight this virus back. And we have to stop. And I guess because of the state of emergency and the lockdowns, we have more time indoors, we have more time to ourselves. We have to take some time, some quiet time, and take stock of our own mental state and think about it and realize, what are we doing to ourselves? What are we what are our fears about? What is going on in our own minds? And try to get to the root of it. What are we afraid of? At the beginning of this pandemic last year, around March, April, I started feeling, we all feel it. We feel this fear, this negative energy building, this uncertainty, this disturbed emotional state. And what I had to do is I had to take a day or two and sort of retreat inward and do some meditation, do some thinking, do some introspection and figure, okay, why is all this fear here? Where is it coming from? And how do I deal with it? And at that point in time, being a father, and I noticed that a lot of my fear was coming from the fact that I'm a father, I'm responsible for a family, and I have children to take care of, I have children to keep fed and healthy, and all this uncertainty and doubt around and where we're heading into this pandemic, that really had me a bit, just a little bit stressed and a little bit fearful and anxious about the future. So I had to sit down and realize what was going on there, and then come to the conclusion that, that at the end of the day, whatever will be, what will happen, happens. I am going to do the best that I can in terms of what I can do for myself and my family to keep, and as well the patients that come to see us at large, to keep everybody as healthy as possible and to advise people how to keep themselves healthy and how to keep themselves well. So it's about doing the best that you can, and understanding that some things are out of our control and some things are within our control. And we make the changes to the things that we can control, and we do our best, and we leave the rest up to the universe, to the divine. So fear, we have to find some time to deal with the fear that we're experiencing. And again, fear destroys your immune system's function and its response and its ability to fight off organisms. So take some time and at home or by yourself, take some quiet time and start, finding the root of where your fear comes from. For some people, it may be fear of uncertainty. Some people, it may be terror and panic. Some people, it may be fear for loved ones, their family, their elderly, their family members who are not so well. But at the end of the day, we're only responsible for ourselves and our dependents. And it's trying to do the best that we can at that point in time. I've noticed that a lot of patients are coming in and their day and night cycles are really disturbed. And we have to advise patients again that, and the general public at large, ensure that you're getting enough sleep. Ensure that your day and night cycles are doing well. Because again, your immune system needs that time to rest and reset. And that happens in deep sleep. When we don't sleep deeply, what tends to happen is you get a lot of these cortisol and stress hormones, which really, wreck the functioning of your adaptive immune system. So sleep is extremely important. Make sure and sunlight ties into this, the health of your pineal gland, which is the gland that sort of regulates your serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter, which makes you feel relaxed and reduces your stress levels. And melatonin as well, which also has an effect on, preparing your body for night and deep sleep. So try to make sure that your day and your night cycles are doing well. Make sure you get to bed at an early point in time. Your best sleep, your deepest sleep, occurs somewhere between 11 p.m. and about 3 a.m. So try to get to bed, or try to make sure that you're asleep at those points in time. Because our body does have an external clock, and it doesn't just function when you decide that you want to go to sleep. It functions based on this clock that's been going on, since the day you were born. One thing I've noticed is I'm seeing a lot of this victim mentality and victim state going around nowadays as well, and people are absolutely terrified about the actions of others, and they're angry and frustrated. and they're really getting themselves worked up and put into a victim state. The opposite of a victim state is being empowered. And being empowered means that you're taking, your responsibility for your actions. You're taking your chances, and you're doing the best that you can do. In whatever situation you're presented, a terrible situation, an amazing situation, and you make the best of it. And you're responsible for what happens to you, so you act in accordance to that. A victim state is one where somebody is constantly inundated with negative thoughts. They are at the mercy and the will of people around them. And in a pandemic situation, I know it's a balance that has to be achieved. It's in terms of the actions of people around us actually can, further increase the spread of virus. And what I mean by that is more physical contact with people and close contact with other people. That can actually increase the spread of virus. But in what I'm trying to present today is that your immune system, that is what you're responsible for. Your health, that is what you're responsible for. So take the time and make sure that you empower yourselves and you empower your immune system to be able to protect you and to keep you on the right path. Instead of getting angry at other people, when you go outdoors and you see people, what you would think they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, start thinking, what can I be doing within my own, home, to myself, within my circle, to my health? What can I do to make sure that I'm healthy and my immune system is functioning well to protect me and to protect the people around me as well? Because a healthy immune system can also prevent infection in that sense. And what I mean by that is that your innate immune system has the ability to even protect you from even getting infected. You can be exposed to virus, you can be exposed to pathogenic organisms, and your innate immune system can protect you from even being infected at all. And that's an important point to bring up here, that by maintaining your health and maintaining the health of your immune system, you protect the people around you. We are limiting contact with everyone around us nowadays. But in the chance that you are exposed, a healthy immune system, keeping your immune system healthy, means that you protect the vulnerable people around you, because you're less likely to catch it. And even if you catch it, you're less likely to spread it, because your body has more level of control in terms of protecting you and protecting the people around you. So that's just something to bear in mind. I'm seeing a lot of patients nowadays as well with EMF stress. Because of the lack of social contact, we're being forced more onto digital platforms. For example, we're doing webinars now, and we're using our computers a lot more. We have a lot more electronic equipment around us at all times. Most of our communication with people are being pushed onto these devices. And it is a gift in the sense that we can still use it to communicate with people, to connect with people. In this situation where we're being advised to, and governments and systems are telling us that we need to distance for a while to sort of get these virus numbers down, we still can use these things to communicate in that sense. But we have to be careful that we don't overuse and abuse technology. Take some time away from your phone and your computer. Spend some time in your yard space, your balconies, close to a window, get some fresh air, sunlight. Take breaks, take very frequent breaks. Make sure you don't have your cell phones on in your room at night. All these contribute to higher levels of EMF stress. Don't use your phone till 3 o'clock in the morning and then attempt to try to get some sleep after that. Make sure and turn off your phones when you're in your bedrooms. Social isolation also leads to more stress, more anxiety. It leads to high levels of depression. And this is where we have to sort of try to reach out to people, not only for our own mental health as well to connect with other people and to assist other people around us, because we're going to get through this thing together. We're a community and we need to support each other. So we need to reach out to our loved ones, connect with them, find out how they're doing, chat with them, find out what's bothering them, how do they feel during this thing, and also bring in some lighthearted conversation as well, so that we can laugh, we can smile together, and all of these things have really positive effects on the immune system. There are tons of studies done on showing how connection, laughing, smiling, connecting with other human beings will enhance your overall health and well-being, and it reduces stress levels, it enhances immune system function. So make sure and reach out to people, even though we're not able to physically connect with people nowadays, we can still connect with people, through the telephone, through digital means. It's not ideal, but it's still better than isolating ourselves and cutting ourselves off from other people. And fear has the ability to do that. Fear makes us want to distance ourselves and to separate ourselves from everybody else. So that's the main caution there. No access to nature as well is severely blocked. According to our regulations here, we're not allowed to go to the beach, we're not allowed to go out hiking, we're not allowed to get out into nature. But if you have the ability to sit under a tree in your yard, or to go into your yard space, into your private, green space, and or just sit amongst your plants and just do some, quiet, slow breathing, or relax, read a book. All these things help. Getting out into nature, getting sunlight splashed onto your face, getting, some fresh air, connecting with living things around you. All that has positive effects on your immune system and as well your overall health and well-being. So we have to take the time to ensure that we do well, again, because this protects ourselves and the people around us. We wanted to go a little bit into the aspects of, a few things that you can do as well, in terms of, besides looking at the emotional state and the things you can change at home and practices that you're doing. Sunlight and vitamin D. I mean, we've mentioned this a lot. We spoke about it a lot over the last year, and we'll continue to beat it, and speak about it and talk about it, and and continue to share this information. Vitamin D3 can be had either in supplement form. Ideally, it's best to get sunlight. Sunlight does other things other than boost vitamin D3. Sunlight has infrared light in it. It has ultraviolet light, and all these spectrums within white light and sunlight, they actually have positive effects on the immune system. They increase your cellular regeneration rate. If it's one takeaway message we've learned from the last pandemic that we've had of this scale and this magnitude, which was in the early 1900s, and that would have been the Spanish flu. One thing that they noted was that patients who were housed in the outside tents, outside of the hospitals or the field hospitals, where they were getting more sunlight and access to fresh air, they actually did far statistically better in terms of their health and their well-being, and their recovery rates, their need for medications, their time spent in hospital. They did much better than the patients who were actually housed inside of the hospitals, within wards and in isolation. So, getting access to sunlight, and I'll add in fresh air as well, is crucial in this time. And again, if you don't have a backyard, sit by a window, and the more skin exposure you have, the more vitamin D you're going to get access to. And if you're not getting access to a lot of vitamin D3 and sunlight, being able to supplement can help. What it does is that it'll help to boost your blood levels, and this is going to help boost your immune system function. There are actually compounds that your body will make, and vitamin D signals the production of these compounds that line your mucous membranes and are actually destructive and damaging to viral particles, especially coronaviruses, influenza viruses that try to latch on to the lungs. And this is one of the reasons why they believe that you have these seasonal patterns with viruses. During the summer months in northern and southern climates, or temperate zones, you'll find that you have less burden of these respiratory viruses. And as soon as people start putting on their jackets and covering their skins and not going outside much during the winter months, and there's less hours of sunlight, you get a surge in the levels of these these common cold viruses. As a young person living in Trinidad before 18, I do not remember getting the common cold at all. But I would get the flu every once in a while, but I don't really remember getting the common cold at all, symptom-wise. When I went to study in more northern temperate climates, what I did notice is during winter times, when I didn't have access to the sun, when we were indoors a lot more, the temperature was colder, I was getting a common cold virus every sort of 6 to 8 weeks. And these viruses don't knock you out. They in terms of these seasonal viruses, common cold viruses, you just tend to feel miserable for a week or two, and then you get over it. And then in 2 months to 6 weeks, you repeat the cycle all over again. And that's what winter was. My first winter was like. So it does this. Vitamin D is very, very important. Now, in terms of dosage for vitamin D, if you haven't been getting a lot of sunlight and you have been, indoors a lot more, and you're not really and you're not been taking any vitamin D supplementation, it's good to start off with sort of like a larger dose of medicine, what we call a bolus dose, to sort of get your vitamin D levels up as soon as possible. And what I can suggest is, as an adult, you can take up to sort of like 10 to 15,000 international units for a few days, 4 to 5 days, get your vitamin D levels up, and then you can go down to about 5,000 IUs every day, and continue using that. On days where if you get outdoors and you get a lot of skin exposure to sunlight, you can actually skip your vitamin D that day. Vitamin D is always better taken in the morning time, and so that, because it is a sunlight hormone, and so that if you try to take it at night, that can throw your body into a little bit of confusion, in the sense that it'll start thinking, why am I getting access to sunlight now? It's nighttime. So take it during the daytime. Start off with 10 to 15,000 for a few days, and then you can actually bring that down to about 5,000 IUs, and you can take that every day. For children, anything from about 400 to 1,000 IUs. I give my 2-year-old and 4-year-old, on days that they don't get outdoors, I can give them as much as about 1,000 IUs daily. And they use that on a regular basis to keep themselves protected and healthy. So vitamin D is very important for your immune system response to these viruses. And again, indirectly, it enhances your mood and makes you feel good. It has longevity effects. It increases your body's ability to heal, repair, regenerate. It's a longevity compound as well. So make sure you're getting enough of this to protect yourself. Vitamin C, this is common knowledge, but make sure you're getting enough. No, there's one thing. There are a lot of studies that I've come across that have shown that vitamin C actually doesn't really have much of an effect in terms of helping with infections, viruses, and all these things. What I can report on that is that there is a difference between taking vitamin C and your actual blood levels or plasma concentrations of vitamin C. Taking an ascorbic acid tablet does not necessarily mean that you're going to have great levels of vitamin C within your blood. What you have to do is, what I advise is that if you're going to take a supplement, the two supplements that we tend to recommend would be either a liposomal vitamin C, which has the best absorption within the body and utilization within the body. And that's where the vitamin C is coated by these little lipid nanoparticles or lipid molecules that are allowed to enter your cells easily and get into your gut and your bloodstream easily as well. Bioflavonoids are these compounds that are found in fruit and vegetables. And this picture I put up here with all these colorful, beautiful fruit and veg. Bioflavonoids are often found alongside vitamin C, and they aid in their absorption and use. An example is an orange. What we tend to always recommend to patients: don't just squeeze an orange or just consume the pulp. What you want to be consuming is also the white area as well around the pulp, and that's where all your bioflavonoids are. And this enhances the absorption and the use of vitamin C in your body and boosts those plasma levels. So taking a tablet of vitamin C does not mean that your blood concentration levels are going to be adequate. And most of these studies and the meta-analyses that have looked at adequate blood concentration levels of vitamin C in terms of coronavirus have actually found that your severity of disease is reduced, your risk of mortality and long-term disease is reduced as well. For some patients, time spent in hospital is reduced. So vitamin C is really amazing. And what I tend to recommend, you can use about between 1,000, 2,000 international units if you can get liposomal or vitamin C with bioflavonoids. You can also get it through your diet. Eating foods rich in vitamin C will have all these bioflavonoids as well. Zinc is something really talked about, and not many people know why it's great. But zinc as a molecule itself, it's an ion within the body, a metallic ion. It has tons of effects on your nervous system, helping to regulate your mental, emotional state and nerve function within the body. It works on your testosterone and hormonal system. But more specific to this, it has two effects, which we really like in terms of making sure the immune system is healthy and prepared in terms of dealing with coronavirus. Zinc has anti-inflammatory effects, and it also has antiviral effects. and antiviral effects in terms of we have these metalloproteins within a cell that actually have zinc or need zinc or use zinc in order to prevent viral replication within a cell. So if your intracellular zinc levels are good, that's another step or another path in the resistance for coronavirus, getting into your system, dividing out of control, turning the immune system on in a way that it damages your body. So, taking zinc, and what we tend to recommend, don't take more than about 25 milligrams of zinc on a daily basis. There are different sources of zinc that you'll see. Try to avoid sources like zinc oxide and inorganic, zinc. What you can look for is zinc glycinate, zinc ascorbate, which is an acid. Zinc glycinate is bound to gluconate. Ascorbic or ascorbate is bound to vitamin C. Sulfates are bound to sulfates, and chelates would be a combination of a few different formulations of zinc. So these are the more organic, where zinc is bound to an organic molecule. These are easily or more easily absorbed in the body than the inorganic forms, and they're more bioavailable, meaning that they're easier for the body to use it. Now, getting zinc into your cells, into your plasma, your bloodstream, and into your system is one thing. Getting it into your cells is another. And this is where one compound I've come across, quercetin, has a lot of potential benefits. Quercetin is something we've spoken about before. It's an interesting compound in terms of anti-aging. It does a lot for your health. What I tend to recommend in terms of quercetin, you want to take about 1,000 milligrams per day. Now, quercetin is not something that may help if you jump to it if you found out you've been infected. It's something, quercetin takes some time to build within your system and get to plasma levels and blood levels where it would be of benefit to you. And from one or two studies that I've seen, they've quoted figures along the lines of 2 weeks. So you want to be taking, quercetin for a period of time. And so this works much better if you start taking it now, if you take it as a prophylactic, method, rather than just taking it to treat if you already have COVID-19 or coronavirus. So it boosts immune system functions, and it works synergistically with zinc. And the reason why is quercetin has been shown to enhance the intracellular levels of zinc, meaning that it helps to get more zinc into your cells, which boosts your immune system's ability and your cellular ability to resist viral infection. So that's zinc and quercetin actually work really well together. Another aspect of quercetin, so one of the main reasons why coronavirus affects people so badly is the virus replicates. And now, most of the people who tend to get really bad or severe illness from coronavirus, they already have a high burden of chronic disease and other issues as well. So what's happening now is that you're stressing your immune system, or an immune system that's already been stretched or stressed to its maximum level. So what tends to happen, the reason why people get severe COVID disease is when the immune system overreacts and actually starts destroying your lung tissue and your own system. And you reach a point where patients can't breathe and their oxygen saturation start dropping. So what quercetin actually has, it has an effect of balancing immune system function. It prevents immune system overreaction, and also it brings up an underactive immune system as well. So if your immune system is sort of overreacting to viruses, a steady state of quercetin can help block that or prevent that or keep your immune system functioning at that level. So quercetin works really well with zinc together, and I'm seeing a lot of formulations now, supplements where you can get quercetin and zinc together, and yeah, that's actually something you can use. Quercetin can also be found in a lot of, especially I was talking about the white of the orange, lemon and orange rinds, or the white part of it. They contain a lot of quercetin. Dr. Nilash did a lot of research and found that chives or spring onions contain a lot of quercetin as well. And consuming more of those things, putting more of those things into your diet. A lot of fruit and vegetables, especially closer to the peels of the fruit and vegetables, they tend to have a lot of quercetin as well. We have to talk about the basics, and this is going back to the idea that we have to make sure that we're doing all that we can to get our immune systems in the right state to deal with this virus. From what we've been seeing with this Brazilian variant is that it I mean, from the initial data that we have, and that may change as time goes along, but from that initial data, it looks like it seems to be it's more infective or spreads much faster than the original Wuhan strain. We will help to I mean, we will sort of get an idea as well as time goes along to see if that information continues or that information is accurate. But for now, that's the initial data that we have, and the basics of a healthy body, mind, spirit. All of that is going to help us to build an immune system that is robust, that is healthy, that is able and ready to resist disease and protect ourselves and protect our loved ones around us. Meditation is key. Introspection, taking quiet time by yourself. These things are what is going to help to bring your body back to a state where your mind is settled, where your stress hormones are at a reduced level. And as we know, cortisol, which is one of your biggest stress hormones in the body, cortisol actually really dampens your immune system's ability to fight. Exercise, there are tons of studies. This has been, out there a long time now. Dr. Roshan spoke about this previously as well, how, the immune system responds to exercise, and being able to exercise and on a regular basis. And even if you can just find time to put 10 minutes in the day to do some squats, to do some lunges, to do some burpees, to do some push-ups, or do some calisthenics using your own body weight, or, just some simple exercises just to get your body moving. This is going to have a really positive effect on both your innate and adaptive immune systems. I think there was one study I looked at where the immune system has been found to really enhance the adaptive immune system's response and speed up the ability of your body to respond, produce antibodies to infection, and also to retain the memory of that previous infection. In terms of sleep, we do need to make sure, and I mentioned that earlier, deep sleep and our day and night cycle is very, very, very important. So we have to make sure that we're getting enough deep sleep. Eating well. A patient of mine at the beginning of this pandemic asked me, how do I protect myself? And what I did is I went through with her the last 24 hours of her diet. And essentially what we saw, and it was pointed out to her as well, that there was a lot of processed foods, there was a lot of fast food, there was a lot of quick foods that were just eaten out or consumed out of convenience rather than health in mind. And the one thing I told her is the first thing I want you to do is to clean up your diet, because an immune system that's burdened with a lot of junk is not going to be able to function effectively to make sure that you can fight off this infection effectively. Again, the vast majority of people who get coronavirus recover and show very little symptoms. But I think the figures I've seen thrown around from the WHO and other bodies, it varies. But about 20% of people, they're going to have more severe illness. And those are these people I'm speaking to that you need to get, start eating healthier and start making sure that you don't want to be in that 20%. Prayer and faith and connecting with the divine in your own personal way, that's very important. In this time that we have all this fear and all this uncertainty and all this doubt and all this worry and depression that's going around, having faith is what's going to bring back hope into our lives. That's going to bring back hope that we can survive this, that we can thrive, that we can do well, that we can come out of this better than we went in, that we can protect ourselves and we can protect our families and surrender. We do the best that we can and we surrender the rest to the universe. And that is what I'd like to share with you in terms of how we proceed with dealing with all of the negative emotions that are swirling around. A quick note on what we've been seeing in terms of the data for this vaccine before we wrap up, because we wanted to get to some to some Q&A, to more questions and answers. And I know a lot of you have a lot of questions that you wanted to ask, and we wanted to structure this talk so that you can have some time to answer some questions as well. The at-risk groups of the people who tend not to do so well or tend to have a higher risk of severe disease. And from what we've been seeing from the data is people with cardiovascular health issues, people with high inflammatory burdens on their body. Obesity seems to be a big one as well, diabetic or diabetes, and chronic kidney disease, chronic renal disease these seem to be the big factors. Before, I mean, being advanced in age or being older, 60 and above, this was something that was mentioned before. But what we're seeing with these newer variants is that younger people are starting to get affected by this virus. And so, age by itself it seems to be changing as a at-risk group. And it doesn't mean just because you're older, you're going to be, you're going to have, issues in terms of being at a higher risk group of this virus. Now, just being younger means that being older or younger, it seems to be having an effect. From initial data, again, and I want to say this with a grain of salt, initial data that we've been seeing, in terms of out of Brazil and stuff like that, we're seeing that younger people are being affected by this virus. But as more data comes out, we're going to see more. We're going to be able to see more data coming out, and we can make better decisions as to how we move forward in terms of this pandemic, and how our governments and systems make decisions to mitigate the damage that this thing is doing. So in terms of cardiovascular health, we found that people who do have cardiovascular risks, and it could be unknown cardiovascular risk or known cardiovascular risk. There are people, from 30s and 40s, you're starting to see, from what we've been seeing in the practice over the last, 5-6 years working in this field of medicine. You're starting to see people in their 30s and 40s starting to have cardiovascular disease and cardiovascular risks. And we're seeing heart attacks in younger patients, strokes in younger patients, high inflammatory burden. You're seeing patients with a really high level of inflammatory changes within their bodies. And a system that's already stressed with high inflammation is going to have problems dealing with a virus that is also going to turn on your inflammatory response in a major way. Obesity and its effects on your lungs and the oxygen carrying capacity around your body. In obesity, these things are already stressed, your cardiovascular system is stressed, and you add a virus on top of that, and it's going to really have some negative consequences. Diabetes seems to damage and have some really negative effects on the inner lining of the arteries. And some recent data from the Salk Institute recently came out and showed that the spike protein, they're realizing or starting to find data why the spike protein actually causes a lot of damage in terms of our cardiovascular risk. Because a lot of patients also get heart attacks and clots, and this has been released out to the public in terms of information that clots are a major risk factor in terms of when you contract coronavirus and how your body deals with it and recovery and your risks. So it seems that by damaging the endothelium or the inner lining of your arteries and your blood vessels, it's increasing your chance of clots. And chronic kidney disease. Chronic kidney disease normally stems from cardiovascular problems initially and diabetes, which is going to have a really negative impact on your overall health and well-being. So, I mean, we're going to sort of end up the formal conversation, but I know you'll have a lot of questions you want to answer, so we're going to give you all some time to see if we can get through to those questions and see if we can answer them as best as possible. This is a famous quote from Master Yoda from Star Wars, and it said that fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. And the ultimate path of fear, it almost always ends you up in suffering. So that is one concern that I'd like to get out to you all, that we have to deal with the fear. That has to be our number one priority right now, in addition to everything that we've already started doing. But focus on fear and make sure that you're not being severely and negatively affected by it. All right. I guess we'll turn over now to the question and answer portion of this chat and see how we can answer some questions and get everybody on board. So John.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Adriel. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So real quick, I want to take a moment to share some information about Vitality Academy. So can you let me know if the screen is showing, the tab is showing? So I have it up. Just let me know on your end when you can see it, okay?
Sure.
All right. So everyone, thank you again for being here. We are now about to jump into the Q&A section. I think we have maybe 10 or 12 questions in queue already, and we try to answer them as they are received. So we'd love and appreciate any questions you have. Please keep them coming. And with that, I'm going to just take a minute to explain the Vitality Academy for those who are unaware, because now we're in a very challenging time, obviously. And one of the things Dr. Adriel just mentioned was these at-risk groups, okay? And some of the things that may be a benefit to them may be exercise and dietary changes, etc. And everyone here couldn't hurt to exercise a little more, couldn't hurt to eat a little healthier. So are you able to see it now, Adriel?
Yes, it's up. Sorry.
Awesome. It's okay. Thank you. So a couple, we now are excluding this current live webinar. We have 25 presentations that we have done as a group, which is very, very, very impressive. And it's quite the library. And if you want to check it out, you'll get directed there when the webinar is done. But there's a few of these, because we're in this unique situation, at least for those of us in Trinidad. We probably have a third or a quarter of us internationally. But those of us in Trinidad with this kind of new state of emergency lockdown situation, it's a time for introspection, and it's a time for maybe change, okay? And a couple of changes that kind of popped in my mind, I thought that may be beneficial for those watching and trying to improve your lives, which is why you're here, and we're so happy you're here, is we have so many webinars and presentations that are designed to kind of help you make these changes. And if you're a person that happens to be at risk, why it's definitely a better time to make these changes now and kind of move in that direction, right? In other words, leverage the challenges the situation gives you to make change, okay? A lot of people don't do it until it's almost too late, okay? So we're trying to help you do that sooner. And there are a whole bunch of amazing, amazing presentations in here. And Dr. Adriel mentioned exercise. So we have actually two that are focused, but there's one that I did, you see in the center of the screen here, which I did with Dr. Nalash, creating a sustainable workout habit. It was designed for you being stuck in your house. So it was an entire workout routine designed for that. We have a couple of these on sleep, on food. There was one called Let Food Be Thy Medicine. There's a whole bunch that are kind of about mindfulness. Dr. Roshan had those, the sacredness of simple things, and the mind-body connection. In other words, there's a lot here. And I would strongly encourage, if you haven't, now's a great time to sit and take notes and participate and learn and grow and leverage this situation so you can improve yourself, improve your mind, and help you get to where you need to go. So that's a little bit about the Vitality Academy. Again, you'll be redirected when the webinar is done. You can check it out. We'd love to have as many of you that have an interest in it. And regardless, we appreciate your support, and we're looking forward to seeing you. And I'm going to now bring it up to the Q&A section. So give me 1 second. All right. So Dr. Adriel, let me see. So I got a bunch here. So I'm going to go to the very top. So the very first one. Okay. This is from Grace. Sinopharm will be available from next Saturday. It must be a vaccine. What do you think of this vaccine? Would Ishtara have a remedy to go with it? If yes, when? So it's called Sinopharm.
So the Sinopharm vaccine. I was expecting a question on this because it's recently it's a vaccine that's been brought into the country. It's meant to sort of booster the vaccines that we're getting from the COVAX facility, which seems to so far just have been the AstraZeneca vaccine. In terms of vaccines, the main concerns and that any rational thinking person should always ask is that, first of all, does it do what it says it does? Is it safe in the short term? And then look at long-term safety data. And so what we really have to ask ourselves is that, in terms of the current crop of vaccines that we have from the Western world, the Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, there is published data in terms of its effectiveness. There is published data in terms of, short-term effects on the body. The US and the UK and Europe at large has really, really, really robust and very good vaccine adverse event reporting systems, which they call VARs for short. And these systems are intended to monitor, vaccines that have been rolled out into the population. And that data has actually been presented. I think the UK VARs system recently put out a whole lot of data on incidents in terms of the AstraZeneca vaccine. And when something is transparent and there's data, that's excellent, and it means we can actually give a definitive statement and say, well, yes, this vaccine has all this data available, and it's available for you to look at it, make a decision on it, and to say, well, okay, let me have a private discussion with my doctor as well, and find out if my doctor and myself, if we think that this vaccine is right for me. But the problem with the Sinopharm vaccine is it's a relatively younger vaccine, and the data that we have, because this vaccine was trialed mostly in sort of third world countries, we don't really have a lot of data to suggest whether we know the effectiveness, the short-term safety and long-term safety. Now, it could show that once we get more data that this vaccine is perfectly safe and it's fine, but or we don't know. We really can't answer. In terms of if we'll have some, because we always do try to have some detox remedies and stuff like that for patients who take this vaccine. So far, we have one available for AstraZeneca, but we're still looking into we won't have anything yet available. Once we do have it available, we'll let patients know.
Thank you. All right, this is from Karen. Not sure about elsewhere, but in the US, the fear of vaccinations seems to compete with the fear of getting COVID. Because different vaccines are available here, I'm regularly asked whether one should get vaccinated for COVID or which vaccine does least harm, and whether an antidote will be available if complications develop. Any words of wisdom as to navigate the vaccination decisions would be appreciated.
So far, I think I've answered some of that in the last question, but let me get to the rest of it. In the United States, from what I believe, from the last of the data check, is only so far Moderna and Pfizer the ones that are mainly being rolled out. Johnson & Johnson had some had initial approvals, but they've had some hiccups. I'm not entirely sure they've restarted back vaccinations of Johnson & Johnson. But for the most part, Moderna and Pfizer seem to be the ones that are available. They are very similar in the way that they work, in the sense that they're mRNA vaccines. And what they do is you're injecting a small amount of mRNA. Messenger RNA or mRNA is more or less sort of like a little bit of genetic information that encodes for a protein. And in this case, it encodes for a protein called the spike protein, which is what allows the coronavirus to enter your cells. So what this is doing is it's injecting some lipid nanoparticles with this genetic information. This genetic information goes into your cells and then goes directly to what we call the ribosomes. The ribosomes are these little protein factories within the body. And what these ribosomes do is they take that genetic information and they now translate it into protein. So that genetic information causes the ribosomes to produce the spike protein. And that spike protein is now presented on the cells. And your immune system will come along and realize, hey, there's viral proteins here, and it starts to activate the immune system. So in terms of what's available in the US, it seems to mainly be the Pfizer and the Moderna, which are very similar in the way that they function. I think Moderna has done a little bit more tech in terms of making the vaccine more stable for transport, and that's why they can store it at higher temperatures versus the Pfizer. But they both seem to be around the same. Because Pfizer has been on the market a little bit longer, I think they have a little bit more safety data. And so vaccine choice in terms of whether you choose to get vaccinated or not, again, that's a personal decision. It's a public health issue as well. Listen to your to the relevant authorities. Look at the data, and I would suggest anybody to go read about the data on these vaccines. And if you feel that yes, you want to get the vaccine, then go ahead and take the vaccine. If there's any concerns or doubts, do consult your physician, your doctor. Do read for yourself and make your decision based on that.
Thank you. So I'm going to quickly go through, because it was kind of a few questions on the vaccine and a few other ones. And while I have a moment, Dr. Harry did make a note, and I just want to say it in case you guys missed in the chat. One important thing to remember is that dark energy has a direct effect on the pathogens outside the immune system. So be cognizant of that. And There are several webinars on the dark energy. There's a Behind the Mask series that goes over that more in detail. Okay. Bear with me. All right, I'll go back to them. So, all right, this is from Saira. Is there any instrument that we can use to measure our plasma levels, just like there is an oximeter to measure oxygen?
That's I just need that question to be a little bit more specific in terms of.
I'm guessing because you were mentioning like vitamin D or blood. You're mentioning certain things building up in blood over time. Yeah. I think it's more the relevance of the question.
I know that there are you can do tests for vitamin D levels, and you can check your plasma levels. You can go to any lab and ask for vitamin D levels. There are not many labs that do vitamin C levels, as far as I know. You may be able to get it done, but there's no instruments or little devices. Most of these things are done through blood tests to go check the levels of your plasma levels of these certain vitamins. Yeah.
Okay. Jackie asks, so does quercetin work to alleviate autoimmune conditions? And another question about whether there are extra or special precautions if one has, it's SJORGREN.
Sjogren's syndrome.
Sjogren's. Yes,
yeah. That's right. Sometimes. So yes, it will have a positive effect. What I would caution though is before you start anything in terms of treating autoimmune diseases, always consult your doctor and have a discussion with him or her, and decide if your doctor isn't so inclined, you can speak to a doctor who is more inclined in terms of is more knowledgeable of herbal remedies and holistic medicine. But yes, it can play a part in terms of treatment and management of autoimmune conditions. But yeah, there has to be some caution in the sense that what else are you using and what stage of disease you're in and what to expect when you're using it as well.
Okay. And are there any particular precautions to offset the symptoms? It was a follow-up question she asked. So any particular precautions?
Most autoimmune diseases, what we found is there is a huge gut and mind connection. Most autoimmune diseases have that connection with there is some level of emotional turbulence or turmoil and emotional trauma. Anxieties tend to play a very important role as well. And in addition to that, the gut microbiome. So what I tend to focus on in terms of rehabilitating patients who have autoimmune disease is focusing on the gut and healing the gut, and as well healing the mental emotional state. And when you put those two things together, you get a really good reaction. But again, it's working with a patient. It's going to take time. It's going to get that patient, it's rehabilitating that patient's system back into a state where the immune system can function at a healthy level again.
Thank you. Roxanne asks, address effects on liver as precaution in drug info.
Which drug was
so I think Roxanne, if you could clarify with us which drug you're responding to. So just do that in the chat, and then we'll come back to it, I promise. Sherry asks, what brands for vitamins, whether vitamin D3, zinc, etc. Any particular brands recommended?
At the practice, we tend to use Jarrow's formulas now. Most of these are reputable brands. Nature's Way, I think, has some brands that have vitamin D and vitamin C and zinc and all these things. With zinc, you want to mainly look for those. The brand isn't that specific, but you want to look at more the type of zinc that's in there, glycinates, sulfates, those sort of those types. Yeah, that's a good one. Jarrow's formula is a brand that we love, and now is also another brand that we love. So those that you can look for.
Thank you. Okay. Nicole's asking, how can you manage high inflammatory issues?
So nowadays, most of the really high levels of inflammation that we see tends to be from diet and lifestyle. And if we could sort of, eat less processed foods, get a lot more of these what we call superfoods into the diet, we can sort of, manage our inflammation. In terms of inflammation, what I've found is restricting dairy in the diet, restricting meat, restricting sugar, flour, and as well processed meats. Those tend to have a really positive effect on bringing inflammation down within your body and curbing the effects of negative inflammation. Yeah. Inflammation is not necessarily bad. Your body needs inflammation in order to sort of initiate an immune response and a healing response. But the problem is when we have a runaway inflammation, when that inflammation doesn't stop and it continues on and on and on and continues to cause damage within the body. So, yeah.
Okay. Roxanne did answer. Thank you, Roxanne. She was saying, so the question was relative to liver, correct? Yes, liver precaution, and the two were the quercetin and L-glutathione.
Glutathione.
Yeah, I guess.
Sorry.
I don't know if you mentioned it though, but she was talking about liver. I know obviously quercetin. So,
yeah.
Relative to quercetin. So the other one is L-glutathione. I don't know. It's at the very bottom of the chat.
In terms of any herbal supplement or anything that you're taking, if you have an effector or you have liver disease or going on at that point in time, your liver and your kidneys always need to be considered, because any herbal compound and drug that you're taking, you need to be concerned about taking these things if you have a burden of liver disease, because your liver has to sometimes remove excess or the excess amount of these compounds in your system and manage the levels within your body. I'm not sure if that answers the question. Sorry. I'm hoping it does.
Roxanne, let us know if it answers the question. Okay, Gangadai, great question. What's the difference between the flu and the common cold?
So, in terms of the flu virus, sometimes you can't actually tell them apart by just symptomology alone. But the flu tends to favor some symptoms more than the common cold. Common cold is not just one virus. Common cold includes coronaviruses. It includes rhinoviruses, respiratory syncytial viruses, parainfluenza viruses. So the common cold is more of a sort of a lump of viruses that tend to affect you. The flu has effects. The flu tends to give you sort of sore throat, body pains, muscle pains, joint pains. What else? It tends to cause sort of gastrointestinal symptoms as well. Whereas the common cold tends to more give you sort of upper respiratory tract symptoms in terms of sinus congestion, nose congestion, feeling a bit, feeling a little bit miserable in terms of your balance organs and all these things, because it's creating congestion the upper respiratory tract. The common cold or the common cold coronaviruses are slightly different because they are more affecting the upper respiratory tract, whereas so far what we've seen with the original strains of COVID is they seem to be affecting the lungs quite a bit. I think the newer strains of COVID seem to be having an effect on both upper and lower respiratory tract, but again, more data is needed to suggest that.
Awesome. Rose asked, have you successfully treated any COVID patients?
In terms of COVID-19, we're not treating patients at the clinic here. We're trying to sort of we screen patients. If patients call in, we're trying to say, well, okay, this is what we want you to do. And yes, we have quite a few patients of ours who have had COVID-19. They have had minimal symptoms. We've supported them through it with example vitamin D, making sure they eat healthy. Most of the patients who come to see us already, they tend to have some level of an idea how to take care of themselves and their health. So yes, we've had a few patients who've had COVID-19 and they seem to have done well so far.
Okay. Ronald is asking, what's your opinion on using drugs like ivermectin for treating COVID?
So far, ivermectin has some interesting data that's coming out, and it's being recommended by some behavioral countries. There seems to be some positive effects in terms of prophylaxis, and also it has anti-inflammatory effects, which they believe is what is having effect on sort of calming the immune system down, so you don't get this huge overreaction of the immune system and what they call the cytokine storm, which leads to ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome, where the lungs, where you get sort of almost like failure of the lungs. So it does seem to have some positive effects, but again, as more data comes out, so far I think India and a few other third world countries are recommending its use and are using it in severe COVID. But as we get more data, we'll be able to see more about ivermectin use. If you're interested in using ivermectin, of course, this is a controlled drug. You need prescriptions for it. I would get in contact with my doctor and see, if they're on board with it. And yeah, that's what I would think.
Okay, great. Thank you. One of the questions, there's a fair amount of ones left on vaccines, but I'm trying to do my best to filter which ones you've answered most of it already. One question is, if someone cannot refuse to be vaccinated, is there a vaccine which is better, meaning safer than others? Thank you, Javier.
That question again, what is it? Just repeat it.
Sure. So if the person doesn't have a choice but to be vaccinated, is there a particular vaccine which is safer than others, or better, meaning safer is how the questions.
Well, what I can say is I can't speak to the absolute to say that one vaccine is safer than the other. What I can say is the data available to us worldwide so far, there's the most data available for Pfizer BioNTech vaccines. Those seem to be in terms of, because I can't say if one is safer than the other because these are very new vaccines. They are being released into the public. But the one that has the most data appears to be Pfizer BioNTech. They were the first out the door. They were rolled out in the States and Europe. And again, as I said, these VARs, these reporting systems that the UK, that Europe, the vaccine adverse event reporting systems, they're very robust in first world countries where Pfizer has been rolled out. And they've shown that so far that there's less issues associated with the Pfizer vaccine. As more data comes out for AstraZeneca vaccines, which we're starting to see, for Moderna, for Sinopharm being a very young vaccine, there are phase 3 clinical trials. That's why I noticed, I don't know who was asking a question on if the latest phase 3 trials, the WHO has approved its use, but again, the third world countries don't have robust systems to monitor these adverse effects in terms of these vaccines. So the data set that we have to judge the Sinopharm vaccine by is not anywhere near being as robust as the others. So it's sort of we're not sure, and that's where it is. If I don't have data, I can't really comment and say, well, I'd advise this one over that one or that one over this one. So as the data evolves, so far Pfizer has the most safety data in terms of what's available.
Okay. Michael's asking, what about taking zinc and copper depletion?
Oh yeah, that's a very, very good question. Now, the thing is that if you're acquiring zinc from your diet, and you get a lot of zinc in fish and meats and nuts, certain vegetables, you tend to find some copper alongside it. And they typically, advise patients that if you're taking, the upper end dose of a zinc supplement, it can sometimes be beneficial if you're not eating a very wide, diet that has a wide variety of foods in it. That you can supplement with a small amount of copper, because what tends to happen is that zinc tends to affect how copper is absorbed in the body as well, and they tend to affect each other in terms of their plasma concentrations. So having a small amount of copper alongside zinc can be beneficial, yes, and that is a good point to bring up.
Sheena asks, how can you increase oxygen levels?
How can you increase oxygen levels?
I actually saw a video on this the doctor was showing, so I actually have a couple ideas if you don't have any.
Is this in terms of an ill patient or a patient who's healthy and trying to protect themselves?
That's a good question.
In general, in terms of just enhancing your body's ability to keep up with oxygenating your tissues, exercise is amazing. In its ability to improve your microcirculation, and as well increase your red blood cell concentration, and as well improve the lungs efficiency, because if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. and that stands true for your body. If you don't use your body, you're going to lose the ability to do certain things. So by exercise tolerance, aerobic exercise, that's going to boost oxygen levels. I've seen some initial data looking at flax seeds and stuff. I think Dr. Milash presented, some data as well in one of his previous webinars, looking at using ground flaxseed on a regular basis to enhance your body's ability to oxygenate your tissues. Also, enhancing your nitric oxide system within your body, beetroot. These are some methods that you could use. Using beetroot on a regular basis can enhance your body's ability to oxygenate itself. Any suggestions you wanted to add, John, as well? Yeah.
Sure. So the video I saw, the person had an oxygen meter, so they were kind of showing the before and after. And the example was 4 people who actually were experiencing COVID. Okay, so and the danger being your body's under higher risk as your oxygen levels get lower, obviously. So they had 2. They had one where you put a straw into water and just do a cycling of breaths where you basically exhale into the straw into the water. And that was one. And another, which was kind of similar, but maybe a little less accessible for most people, was basically taking balloons and filling up balloons with air, both. And basically it just sounds almost like a slight stress on the lungs had the effect, which it kind of makes sense why it would be as similar effectiveness with exercise and all that kind of stuff.
I guess one other thing popped in my mind, and we've talked about this a lot, and I know you practice it as well, John. That's Wim Hof breathing. That provides some temporary stress onto the lungs, and practicing that daily as well can boost your body's ability to oxygenate itself.
And yeah, the Wim Hof breathing is incredible for those who haven't done it. Okay. Jarrell's asking, what information can you share for asthmatic persons during this time in the pandemic?
In terms of asthma, it means you already have some level of disease burden. One thing I would know, the early recommendations that went out seemed to show that, and they were cautioning anybody with lung disease, which included asthma, and cardiovascular. But we're finding more that cardiovascular disease has the highest risk. Asthma patients will have some level of increased risk above the population, but it's nowhere near as high as people with cardiovascular risks. But in terms of keeping yourself safe, make sure your inflammatory burden is low. Asthma responds a lot to stress levels. I've seen studies where people were able to reduce their asthma attacks and as well changes within their lungs, by just managing their stress levels. And I've seen studies where biofeedback was used, where patients almost totally, reduce the need for asthma medication completely by just managing anxieties and their mental and emotional state. So again, inflammation within the body and anxiety plays a huge role in terms of managing asthma. And once your asthma is better managed and not really causing an acute problem on a regular basis, your risk in terms of your body being able to have, your body having severe disease in COVID goes down.
Adam has a great question. Do you offer any remedies to build up the immune system? I know the answer, but I want you to talk about it.
Yeah, so we have 2 remedies that we refer to here at Ishtara. One is an immune booster, which we use to sort of prime the immune system. It's a homeopathic formulation, and it's used to prime the immune system in dealing with new viruses. So it's just gearing up the immune system and getting it ready to do what it has to do. It typically comes in a dose of a tablet, and you take one today and one within 12 to 24 hours. And in testing patients, we found that it works up to almost about 6 months or so. And it helps in, again, prepping the body, because dealing with a new virus does present complications in the sense that your innate immune system is there if you're healthy and ready to deal with it, but your adaptive immune system will now take quite a bit of time, days to weeks, in order to get itself up to the level where it's in good fighting form to repel, resist, and remove the virus, the infection.
Okay. Now there's a couple questions, and those who are asking these, I would probably encourage you to reach out to the doctors more personally. But there's a couple. One is a 70-year-old with no comorbidities. Curious if the person should take the Sinopharm vaccine, and if so, what precautions should I take? So any like precautions pre-taking the vaccine?
I mean, I can,
if they should take it, obviously.
So the problem is we can't they advise you to take it or not. This is a personal decision. And what I tell patients who come to see me and ask me, doc, should I take this vaccine? I'll go through first their medical history with them and see if there's any risk factors that they have. But they have to make the ultimate decision at the end of the day. The next aspect as well, and what I do to speak to patients about is, look, if you are making this decision from a point of, you've informed yourself, you are empowering yourself in terms of you're ready to take something, and you've read the data, you're satisfied, and you've agreed, you say, I'm ready to go do this, then I don't have a problem with that at all. By all means, if I'm glad if you feel empowered, and I'm happy that you feel empowered to do something that you feel you want to do. If you're being pressured, if you're basing your decision on fear, and fear always leads to irrational thinking. If you're basing your decision on fear, or you're being pressured by other people, or you're being, you're being forced into something, my advice is take a step back and stop and think about what you're doing. No good decision can ever come out of being fearful, and so step back, do your own research and reading. Consult your doctor, and make the decision based on the merits that you have looked at. Don't just jump into anything based on fear. And if you find that you've read all the data and you said, what, I feel fine, I'm making this decision from a rational standpoint, and I feel good about this, then by all means go ahead. If you decide that my doctor and I have discussed this, I have comorbidities, it's been suggested, or that to look deeper into this, then, and I decide to wait to see what goes on, then that's fine. But what I do is I support my patients to make the decision, to make an informed consent decision, and don't make it just solely off a basis of fear. In terms of the vaccines available here in Trinidad, we have AstraZeneca and the Sinopharm vaccine, which has just arrived. I've been hearing rumors that we may soon have some Moderna or Pfizer as well within the country. I've spoken to a few vaccine reps as well, and they've indicated that within the next 4 to 6 months we may see, private vaccines coming into the country. But again, this is speculation. We're not sure. They are saying that we may get vaccines available to private industry, so you may have a choice. So we don't know yet. There's a lot of unknowns and a lot of information that we don't know yet. So my advice is read up on the data available and make the decision not based on fear, but based on rational thinking, and be empowered in what you're doing. Don't fall into a victim state, and don't fall into a fearful state.
Thank you. Sheena asked a question. I think this is a great question. So when taking a multivitamin, which has your daily intake, vitamin C, zinc, etc., should you still take these as a single supplement? Or I'll expand on her question. Should, instead of taking a multivitamin, should you actually take the individual vitamins and minerals separately that you were suggesting in the webinar?
Yep, good question. I have some concerns about multivitamins, and the main reason that I'm concerned about multivitamins is that some of them can be produced from synthetic sources. And synthetic vitamins, if you produce them from a synthetic source, they may not necessarily react within the body, as natural vitamins do, mainly because of their isomeric forms. And we can get into the technical chemistry of it, but different isomeric, for when you produce something, in a lab, you tend to get different isomeric forms. And if you get something from nature, it tends to be one isomeric form. So, it may not be as effective as naturally sourced vitamins. So make sure that your multivitamin is naturally sourced versus, a synthetic source. And some of the labels you will see is from natural sources, from fruit extracts or vegetable extracts. You may see fermented, fermented extracts. Those are the ones that will be more natural extracts. So those are the ones you want to source. You can take multivitamins. Multivitamins tend to have lower dosages of these compounds. So vitamin D3, a lot of multivitamins I've seen, they only carry about 400 IUs of vitamin D3. Whereas, as I was suggesting, people who are deficient or not really getting much sunlight may need as much as 5,000 daily just to maintain. And sometimes they may need as much as 15,000 to 10 to 15,000 to sort of use in the short term to build up their levels. So that's what I would advise. Yeah, you can take multivitamins, but just watch the levels, and you may need to supplement extra. In terms of zinc, some multivitamins I've seen carry between 5 and 25, milligrams of zinc. If it's carrying more the upper limit, 20 to 25, that should be fine. If it's more the lower limits, you may need to supplement extra. But yeah.
And since we're running out of time, there's one question I kind of want to get, just so for those who may have come on late and may have missed the dosage suggestions. So you just mentioned vitamin D. And earlier you said for an adult, you want to have a build-up phase of doing 10 to 15,000 IUs initially, right? Because people are often deficient. And then a steady amount of roughly 5K would be sufficient for most people to be a maintenance amount, right? 5,000 IU?
Yep.
Okay. And then what about vitamin C? Because the challenge in vitamin C, and I'll show you here. So for example, I have Now brand. This is traditional vitamin C, guys. And then I have a liposomal option as well. So because there's different amounts of absorption, is there a certain amount they should be taking of each, or any thoughts on that?
Mostly vitamin C preps come in about 1,000 milligram tablets, even the liposomal vitamin C. The efficiency and absorption of the liposomal will be much better, so you can actually use less. You can probably get away with about 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and you can up that dose if you have an infection going on. Because the interesting thing about vitamin C is that it does protect your body from reactive oxidation species. Now, when your body is fighting off an infection, it ramps up your inflammation and the reactive oxidation species within your body, which is these oxides that cause damage to these oxidizing compounds that cause damage to viral particles. But it can also cause collateral damage as well. High levels of vitamin C are actually very protective, so they protect your system while these oxidative compounds cause damage to the virus or pathogenic organism. So about 1,000 to 2,000 a day is good maintenance. If you have an infection, you could go as high as 2,000 milligrams in the morning and 2,000 evening. So you can go as 2,000 milligrams twice daily if you have an infection. The problem with vitamin C orally is that you have a limitation as to how much your gut can absorb. And I've seen studies that push sort of anywhere, they push patients to the limits as much as about 6,000 to 8,000 a day. And they found that tends to be the limit. You can't really absorb more than 6,000 milligrams a day through the gut. And it can actually cause digestive disturbances, diarrhea. You'll end up, this stuff just exiting out. You're just wasting good quality vitamin C, and it doesn't really get into the body.
Is that why they do the intravenous vitamin C?
Yes. So if you want to get really high levels of vitamin C in the body, if you're chronic illness, because intravenous vitamin C has a host of positive effects, and this is using like 12.5 to 25 grams of vitamin C versus 1 gram tablets that we're suggesting here. Those directly into the blood. That bypasses the gut so that you get this stuff just straight into the system, and it has amazing effects.
Okay. Quercetin, you said 1,000 milligrams per day, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then what about zinc? I know you just mentioned 15 to 25. Is there a good amount people should be getting?
Yeah, about 25. I've seen people take over 50 grams a day, and that actually has some negative effects, nausea and other effects. So you don't want to go really. 25 is a good spot to be at. Don't move up about that.
Okay. Beautiful. And do you want to have any closing remarks, Dr. Adriel?
Again, everything we've said, follow your regulations, follow the rule of law, but do find ways that you can enhance your health and your well-being during this time, and take your health seriously. There's no better time to improve your health and your well-being, as John said as well. The best time to start is right now. Start exercising now, start eating well now, start taking care of your health. That is the single best way to protect yourself. Mask wearing and all these things, according to governments and systems, those have their rules. But the most important thing you can do is to take care of your own health and well-being. And from what we're seeing is that being healthy and does have an effect and plays an important role on you being able to weather this through, survive and do well and thrive during this time. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Adriel. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. We appreciate every single one of you and look forward to helping you in any way we can. Have an amazing rest of your evening, and we shall see you at the next Vitality Academy webinar. Take care.
Yeah. All right, guys.